guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to a sort of house renovation sort of thing. I did this for my Hamilton Let's Play, so if you want to know more about this house, I suggest you watch the latest episode of my Hamilton series. But other than that, I'm just making a tiny house for 3 people, and I had fun decorating this and sort of rebuilding this a little bit, so that's why I wanted to share. But I actually have some stories for you today about my school experience. So if you don't know, we have kind of a different system than the country you probably live in the Netherlands. If you don't live in the Netherlands, you already know this. But if you don't, let me just explain really quickly. So we go to 2 different schools in our younger years. So the first one is literally translated to basic school, which sounds great. But yeah, it's basically a school where you learn all the basics, like reading, writing, and, you know, stuff like that. So we go there from the age of 4 to the age of 12, and then we go to our equivalent of high school from the age of 12 to the age of 18, or 17 or 16, depending on your level. But I went to school from 12 to 18. And that's our equivalent of high school. And this story is about my first year of high school. Actually, more specifically, my first week of high school. So, in my first 8 years at school, so basic school, basically, no pun intended there, I kind of had trouble making friends. So when I went to high school, which was at the age of 13 for me, I really, really wanted a good group of friends. And the way I went about this was basically going up to as many people as possible and just asking them if I could sit with them. And this could be at lunch or in class or whatever. There were lots of people who already knew each other. So in the first week, there were already lots of friend groups being formed. And I wasn't part of any of them, but I just decided to ask them if I could sit with them at lunch. Sort of try to work myself into these friend groups. So this is a story about one of those friend groups that I try to be friends with, basically. So the first couple of days after I got to know them were great. They seemed to like me. We hung out together a lot. We got to know each other. And we sat together at lunch. So basically everything that I wanted. Everything that I've always wanted. Just a good group of friends that I always could hang out with, I had at that moment. So I really thought that I found my group of people in that moment. Turns out, it didn't really turn out that great. They really weren't my friends, but the first couple of days were actually really good. So we hung out together and everything. But after a couple of days, they sort of went a little bit distant on me. Which I sort of noticed by not being included into the conversation as much. They acted kind of weird around me. The conversation went really quiet when I went up to them. And this was like after a couple of days. And I have no idea what changed. I don't know if I did anything. I don't know if I said anything. Maybe they just didn't like me from the beginning. I still don't know. But the fact was that they just started acting really weird around me. But I was young, and naive. So I really wanted it to not be true. So I just told myself that I was imagining things and I was insecure and that this was just a thing that I was making up. So I kept hanging out with them. And then one day after school, they were talking. And they didn't really invite me or whatever. They were just, when I went out from class, I saw them sitting in the lunch area, the lunch break area. And they were talking to each other, but they hadn't said anything to me. So I went up to them because I thought we were friends, and I was like, hey guys, and I sat down, and immediately when I sat down, the conversation just went completely quiet. Like they were barely speaking to each other, and when they were speaking, it was very quietly, like almost a whisper, so I couldn't hear. Which again, I was just like, maybe I'm imagining things, maybe this is not true, but I was sort of like getting a feeling that this wasn't right at that moment. And I still told myself that, you know what, I really wanted it to work, so I just couldn't accept the fact that they didn't want to be friends with me. And in that moment, they were talking about going to the mall together, which I sort of picked up on, like, a little bit of conversation there. And they didn't invite me, so I decided to invite myself, which is always great. Like, always a really good thing to invite yourself. You always know that people really like you when you have to invite yourself. Note to sarcasm. So I basically asked them if I could join them to go to the mall. Which they hesitantly said yes to, which is always great. And then we biked to the mall together, because we always rode our bikes everywhere. That's kind of a Dutch thing. You always ride your bikes everywhere. We don't have school buses or whatever. We go on our own bikes when we're younger. So while we were going there, I started noticing that they would go really fast and try to leave me behind. So as they basically went ahead as far as possible so I wouldn't be included in the conversation. And on our way there, that's when it really started to sink in that these people didn't like me and they really didn't want to be friends with me. But I was already going to the mall with them, so what was I going to do? I was too insecure to just say, hey, I noticed you don't like me, I'm gonna go now. So I just waited for me to think of an excuse to go. And the thing that happened for me to, like, think of an excuse was really ridiculous. So at some point when we were in the mall, I reached into my bag and I felt something sting in my hand. And you know the squishy part beneath your thumb, like the little fat part beneath your thumb? I felt something sting in there, and when I opened my hand, a dead wasp, fell out. So I got stung by a wasp in the squishy bit in my hand, which you don't feel at all. Like, it doesn't hurt at all, just because it's really squishy, so there's lots of, like, layers of protection. It just felt like a little sting, and then the dead wasp fell out, because wasps actually die when they sting you. But kind of confused, I said out loud, hey, a wasp just stung me. So they all gathered around me and started acting really concerned, as if my hand was going to fall off because I got stung by a wasp, which is not true at all. And it was like a really little sting, so nothing was going to happen. But I just thought, you know what? I've been wanting to get out of this situation for like an hour. Let me just use this to my advantage. So I started to act really concerned too, as if something was really wrong, even though I knew nothing was gonna happen. Like, I knew this wasn't a big deal at all. So I just looked at my hand. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just go home. Which is the most ridiculous excuse to get out of a situation I have ever heard. And it was like such a surreal moment. But I just started to act as if there was something really wrong. And I was just looking at my hand like, you know what? Maybe I should really go home. So I went home with the excuse that a wasp stung me in my hand and that I should just go home. Oh my god. But I got out of the situation, and needless to say, I did not speak to those people again. And I actually found a really, really good friend group after a couple of years of, stuff happened. I will talk about that in a later video, but I just thought this was such a funny story to tell just because of the excuse I used to get out of that situation, which was really ridiculous. Have you ever heard that? Someone using the excuse of a wasp stung me to get out of a situation? I haven't. Well, I have, because I used it, but like not from anyone else. But that's basically it for this build. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the story. I've recorded this voiceover 3 times, so I really hope you appreciate it. But that's it for this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye!